Filippo Ghirelli is the founder and executive chairman of InfraCorp, an investment platform focused on systemic infrastructure at the intersection of energy, mobility, digital transformation, and next-generation industrial systems. With a career spanning engineering, energy, and large-scale infrastructure development across multiple geographies, he has built and scaled businesses in both mature and emerging markets, combining technical depth with an entrepreneurial approach to long-term investing. In this conversation with PE Forum, he shares his perspective on the macro forces reshaping infrastructure investing, from artificial intelligence and energy security to geopolitics and capital allocation. He also reflects on his personal journey, leadership philosophy, and the experience that have shaped his approach to building resilient, future-facing businesses. Filippo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
You have described InfraCorp as a company investing in systemic infrastructure. What does that mean in practice, and how is it different from a traditional infrastructure investment platform?
Investing in systemic infrastructure is a different way of investing in infra, because normally what happens, at least in our Western world, is that infra is often seen as an emergency way of stimulating the economy. So we have to see a bridge falling apart in order for that bridge to be rebuilt. We need to really see an asset being treated to its lowest level to refurbish it, or in general, the whatever is we call systemic is something that is planned. And in order for you to plan it, you need to have a proper assessment of what's surrounding what's at the basis of a regional intervention or a national intervention or a supranational intervention. So our way of intending the systemic infrastructure is that we need instruments that are in the availability of governments, should be in the availability at least of governments and funds and developers, in order for them to decide properly what is the assessment, what is the approach to realizing new infrastructure. So if you happen to have a thorough analysis of what you have in a certain region or a larger region, you can also define what are the new important infrastructure that are there to be done in order for you to sustain the future development of such regions.
We are entering a period where AI, energy security, geopolitics, and infrastructure are becoming deeply interconnected. Which of these trends do you believe will have the greatest impact on global investment over the next decade?
Never which one. I think it's I would say the recipe or the mix of what's more effective. At InfraCorp, we are elaborating a thorough platform ranging from identification of a site all the way up to asset management. So a full control system of your infrastructure from A to Z that allows us basically to identify the infra, engineering it, building it, and then managing it, because we believe in the entire process in the entire, I would say, value chain of an infrastructure. So to answer your question, it's a lot depends on how AI will condition, will impact the choices. But my strong belief is that if we consider AI not only as an execution agent but also as a verification agent, we can, I would say, be extremely impactful. But always remembering one thing, that we always need to keep the human in the loop. So this is the reason why, as execution costs are going down, as you can see, Khaled, the big impact of the big guys like Claude, Gemini, and OpenAI, they're reducing heavily the execution costs. But none of them is really looking at what's happening to the verification system. So all the big corporations are now firing people. They're firing middle managers and juniors, but they're not substituting them with humans in the loop to verify what the strategy is going to be, what their strategy is going to look like after there's this enormous production of, I would say, documents and I would say it's a new execution era. So everybody's concentrating on reducing execution costs, but nobody's really considering verification costs. This is the reason why it's always important to have two agents. One is the execution agent, one is the verification agent. This is exactly what we're doing. human in the loop, human expert in the loop is what's going to make a difference between a company that's going to be surviving and a company that's going to be dying. A lot of these advisory companies, the big fours and so on and so forth, they're spending so much money in integrating their AI systems within their infrastructure, within their system, in order to be more efficient, to be more productive, to I would say to increase their margins. But on the other hand, none of them is concentrating on actually verifying that those results are reliable. So that's one of the big issues.
And InfraCorp has been expanding across transportation, decentralized AI, just as you mentioned, energy transition, and also the space economy. Why did you choose these four pillars, and how do they reinforce one another?
These are the hard pillars, I would say. These are the heavy investments that we're doing. We strongly believe that transportation is a very highly systemic value of infra. We strongly believe that transportation is not only a transportation, I would say, across regions, but it's an interconnection between regions. At a local level, at global level, I would say at a global level, because you can have these sort of hybrid interactions. Decentralized AI is the basis of everything, because we strongly believe that what's happening right now is that most of the corporations are giving out their data without even knowing. They're relying purely on AI. So we are heavily concentrating on special types of data centers. So with our decentralized AI protocol, we are able to secure the data within our data centers. So we are actually expanding the work for not only large corporates but also for governments, for large I would say security stakeholders, defense stakeholders. These are the kind of things that we're looking at. Energy is our third pillar, extremely important, because we believe that without a proper energy package, recipe, combination of all sources of energy, from renewables to nuclear to turbo gas to geothermal to wind, these are all a combination of things. So we do not have to concentrate on one single source of energy, thinking that that's the answer to all problems. We need to concentrate on a combination of things. And the fourth one, but I would say the most important one, is space, because space is the outer infrastructure. So if you consider space just as a venture and not consider it as a systemic infrastructure, you will never be able to properly assess how the world is evolving. Earth observation, defense systems, communication. There's a lot of things that are happening in outer space, and you need orchestration systems. So what we are planning to do is be the orchestrator of these infrastructure at a global level, at a national level, at a sub-regional level. This is exactly what we're working on.
You just said rhymes with countries achieving strategic autonomy and digital sovereignty. Where do you believe private capital can work with public investments in order to make the biggest contribution?
We're strong believers, and we have currently 67, 68 projects in PPP, so in private-public partnerships. We strongly believe that these kind of interactions between public and private are fundamental. It's practically and virtually impossible not to have these two worlds join together, join forces, and I would say joint collaborations. What we need to be really careful about is that these interactions do not collide, rather than permeating each other. So it's extremely important to do a very specific type of planning, which is called I would say a hybrid planning. Having private and public institutions work together, it's an enormous thing. It's a great thing. You have to, however, be careful on the strategies and how asymmetry of information works, because you might have countries that are willing to interact with each other, and I would say AI is a big democratization project if you look at it in that way. But on the other hand, you need to be very careful, because data analytics and data exchange is extremely sensible. You understand that in 5 seconds you can create a war, and then you can block a whole economy that is concentrating in a strait, and then this happens in one day, and the reaction of the markets is extremely sudden and important. So what AI can help to do is to, I would say, fluidify, the relationship between public and private, in order for you to understand what is happening, what's going to happen in advance, and how you can take your countermeasures. Because the big issue now, is that the simulation of how I would say an alteration of the world, what this alteration will produce, is not what's happening. So we simply look at the economy, we simply look at things that are happening, and we simply remain as observers, and we try to find an emergency plan. This is again the big problem. So infrastructure and in general actions are not planned; they are based on emergency. So one day we have a war, and then we have to find an emergency plan for that. One day there's another war that happens, and we have to consider another emergency plan. So the idea is, in fact, to really concentrate on planning infra, planning behavior, and AI can help you a lot in predicting what's going to happen and generating a new strategy at corporate level, at global level, at national level. And Khaled, I say this extremely clear. It's very important. If governments implement AI to take their strategic decisions as a supporter force, and they keep the human in the loop. I cannot stop saying that. It's extremely important. They will be able soon to have, I would say, conjugated choices that will lead automatically to stability. So you can use AI as an enormously powerful instrument to stabilize relationships between countries. This is what I really, really feel it's going to look like if we do this properly.
How should government and institutional investor balance between the long-term infrastructure investment with the rapid pace of technological disruption?
It's not a balancing thing. Some things are just decoupled. You cannot always do long-term planning and at the same time always run after technologies, because what governments do is normally sort of chase and run after how technology evolves. Technology evolutions can be extremely impactful. My personal view is that governments should plan their investments and plan their stories, I would say, in the next 50 years. They should. I mean, I think the big mistake is making plans over a 3-year period or a 5-year period. Plans should be 50, 100 years. I want to reach this. Because the moment that you have a short-sighted version of yourself, you're always going to be hunting for technologies that are going to make you reach that 3-year program, that 5-year program. If you program over a 50-year period or a 100-year period, I want to become XYZ. I want to position myself in this way. Then this is going to be I would say, the backbone of your story. The moment you then look at the technologies, you're then going to have to ask the private sector to help you support that thesis. The moment that the government sees the thing short-sighted, what am I going to do in the next 3 years? What am I going to do before the next election? What am I going to do in the next 5 years? What's going to happen over? You cannot do that, because governments are slow machines. They're slow motion, so they cannot do that. The only way because otherwise they would always live in the emergency. The emergency is always popping back again. So my personal view is that the only way for you to do that is to have long-term planning on what you want to be, what you do not want to be, which is another very important thing, and at the same time go on a step-by-step basis, asking all the time to the private sector to help you support that thesis to reach that level. Look at what China is doing. The Belt and Road is an extremely important and relevant example of how essentially things should be looked at in over 50, 100-year period. In their mindset, they take capital risk, okay, on a certain infrastructure, and at the same time they take international, global risk. So they're able to pair the responsibility of developing their infrastructure globally, and at the same time silently taking international risk. Whereas what we do in the Western world, we simply try to decouple these things. So one is infrastructure, one is capital. These two things don't pair together. We always try to assign the risk to somebody else, to repackage it and then sell it again, and then sell it again and repackage it. So the big problem is that once capital goes alongside with the government thought over a 50-year period or a 100-year period. You can then couple capital, risk capital, to international risk, political risk, geopolitical risk. Once you pair these two things together, you're invincible, because you understand locally how people behave, and you understand what you can bring to these populations, what you can bring to these other countries, and so the companies follow you. If the role of a country is to explore other economies and be, I would say, the Aries, so the opening doors for the corporates. What's been happening, especially in Europe, is that we go knock knock on foreign on our foreign partners. We open the doors and then we leave our corporates do whatever they want. We don't follow up. We don't build a structured program. This is exactly what's not to be done. I would say my government has been doing a lot of incredible job. I would say I really have to thank my government on this. But Italy has been doing enormous work, which is totally on the opposite side of what the rest of Europe has been doing. In fact, you can see that Europe is falling apart, and Italy is still becoming one of the greatest countries in Europe. Actually, if not the greatest country in Europe, most stable. We are the most loved economy in Europe right now, and we are taken as a point of reference. So this is exactly what's been happening in the last few years: stability and opening doors, but following up. So being partners with the private sector is the key factor.
You have chosen a big task, because I feel that beyond the infrastructure, there's the political infrastructure to change a little bit in Europe in order to achieve these goals. But this is not surprising coming from you, because you have taken big challenges. Your career has taken you from engineering projects in Africa to building international businesses and becoming one of Europe's newest self-made billionaires. Looking back, which experience shaped you the most?
I would say, if I can say, it's actually very important for me. I would say what was not successful shaped me a lot, because it taught me a lot of what not to do. I've been through several geopolitical situations, from the Arab Spring in Egypt that literally destroyed one of my biggest project. I had to restart from scratch. But this taught me actually a very important lesson, which is taking geopolitical risk seriously. And if I only had at the time a supporting government, or I would say supporting global infrastructure that would help me, this wouldn't have happened. I had no means of I have no ways to predict. I had no principles also of geopolitics. So studying on one side and having instruments in order for you to predict what was the next step. So for sure, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that geopolitics is not something that happens at global level, only at the big guys level, but it happens also at micro level. So always study your geopolitics before going anywhere.
This is a sound advice. Engineering teaches precision, and entrepreneurship often requires bold decision with incomplete information. How have you learned to balance those two mindsets?
Well, if I can correct you on that, on a nice way, I wouldn't say that engineering teaches you precision. I would say engineering teaches you accuracy, which is a different word, but it's a whole different world, because precision is I would say something which happens on a one single case. Accuracy is the equivalent in the normal world of consistency. So engineering teaches you how to be consistent. Studying a process or studying a phenomenon is only important when the study that you run is consistent with results that you keep obtaining over time, which is, I think, the exact essence of how entrepreneurship should be. So consistent results with a thorough, I would say, learning curve. which is extremely important. And the reason why I'm pointing up and not down, because when you talk about learning, you would imagine always costs to go down. Yes, of course, but I put the upward slope because I feel that the moment you are capable of learning more about your consistency curve, that consistency curve increases your competences, increases your expertise, and increases your expectations as well, which is and the expectation is actually the things that you need to balance all the time.
As a leader, how do you encourage innovation while maintaining discipline in an organization investing in complex, capital-intensive projects?
All these things they're not necessarily one against the other. They're all combined. Again, we are in a world where we are measured only by technical things. So we're only measured by numbers, by performance, by the amount of money that you make. I have a fairly, I would say, long-term Greek approach, which tells me that we are not only we are all mortals, but we should become what we are, not become what we want. And so I would say a combination of innovation and I would say human limits is extremely important. The Greeks used to say, you can be anything that you are, okay? Not anything that you want. But within what you are, always do it kata metron. So according to a certain meter, according to a certain limit. You need to know your limits because we're not unlimited. We have the feeling of being unlimited because what we saw, but it's not that everybody is Elon Musk. It's not that everybody is Dario Amodei. There's limitations, and we have to accept those. But the beauty of that is that we can help develop, I would say, skills, and this is exactly what we do in our company. We can decide to develop other people's skills to make them reach and to make ourselves reach what we really are. This is the key factor I think to great success is to become what you are.
Is this part of also your leadership and investment philosophy? And have you had beyond the Greek references, mentors or role models that helped you shape it?
A lot of my mentors date back from, I would say, 2,500 years ago. But I would say that it's all there. I mean, Khaled, if you start, you don't need the gurus that tell you that how to be successful in 10 moves or how to be a fantastic lover in 5 moves or how to obtain success, because those are recipes that work for them. And anybody telling you how to reach success, and you read about how to reach success, in most cases will be a failure, because you are one person, the other person who wrote that book is another person, and so being able to sort of extend that pattern, I would say across the way or horizontally, is just a big mistake. What you need to do is read other people's stories. Which does not mean necessarily success stories. You need to read stories. I always say this to all of our collaborators, all of our colleagues. If you do not read at least 20 to 30 books a year, and those books are of quality, not only you will not acquire vocabulary, and vocabulary teaches you how to describe the world. And if you know how to describe the world, you know how to have critical thinking about the world. But if you don't do that, you don't learn about stories. And stories of people tell you everything about what you want to be or what you do not want to be. So that's, for me, the most important message. It's all in our literature. No matter which country, read, all across Europe, all across the world, all across the centuries. The more people read, the more they understand about how society works. The more how they understand society works, the more they understand how they should be performing. But again, everyone is a different thing. So collaboration, cross-contamination is extremely important, and that can only happen through reading. So the best mentors are the ones that are on the pages of those books.
I had prepared questions asking you looking ahead 10 years. I think I'm going to change it to looking ahead 100 years because of what you mentioned during our interview. What do you hope InfraCorp will be remembered for, not simply as an investment company, but really for its impact on society?
The cool part about this question is that I don't know. We want to create, I would say, an entirely managed properly managed yet secure world of interaction amongst operators of infrastructure. But in general, these things start in a way and they end up in a different way. Think about all the large corporates that you know about. People who invented USDT are now concentrating on humanoid robotics. People who invented Google have been concentrating on healthcare. So I mean, the beauty of Path is that whenever you have resources to invest, you want to invest in adjacencies, and above all, that's what I always say about my mentors in the schools that I've been. You always want to make your customer, a hero. The moment you make your customer a hero, the moment you know that you've done a good job. And your customer evolves. So what you do now is not necessarily what you're going to be doing in the next 10 years. I mean, I've been changing my path, 3-4 times at least. Of course, if you change your path 100 times, is a problem. But if you change your path 3-4 times because you're readapting to what your customer wants and how your new heroes look like, then it's all out there. So to be honest, I don't know what the impact is going to be, and I don't even care. What I want is that I want to be effective, consistent, and I would say extremely motivated by making my customer a hero, and extremely motivated to make the world, I would say, more aware, more critical thinking. I don't like to see make the world a better place, make the world greener, because this is like, do you love your mom? It's the same thing. I don't like empty statements. I like make the world more aware, make the world more critical thinking, make the world extremely I would say interactive, and I would say giving the possibility to people to communicate, to interact with each other, and to merge in terms of new critical thinking. Yeah, that's definitely what I want.
Filippo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.